Okay, so today we're going to be looking at solving equations, which is something y'all did last year, so really this should be a review for you. But again, you're now in my hands, and so I have to make sure that you know it too for me. So if at any point during this video you get behind, just remember you can always pause it, you can rewind, and so just remember that. Don't just rush through it, make sure you get it all done, because you're not going to get a copy of your homework until you show the sub that you have all your notes done. Okay, so we're just going to be looking at solving equations. And remember, when you're solving equations, if you're ever trying to undo something and get rid of it, you're always going to want to do the opposite. Like, what is the opposite of addition? Okay, well, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So if we're trying to remove something that's being added, we need to subtract it. If we're trying to undo something that's being subtracted, then we add it. Same goes for multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. And so that's how we undo those things. If you look at this next question, it says, what are the options for solving the equations below? Notice these equations are the same equation. Okay, I'm just going to show you a couple different ways to work this. Now, what I did notice is that these may look a little funny to y'all because normally you see the variable out to the side. You don't always see it at the top. But really, this is just 3/5 times t equals 6. Okay, even though you see 3t divided by 5. So there's a few different ways, really, that you could work this. A lot of you are going to look at this and you're going to say, okay, I need to multiply both sides by 5. Okay, and that's totally fine. That's actually just the last way that I would choose to do it, because it's actually more work to do it that way. So here's what I would do. I would think about this, okay, if this is 3/5 times t, okay, how do you undo multiplication? You undo it by dividing. So that's the first way we're going to talk about. So I'm going to divide by 3/5 on both sides. The good news is we have calculators. Like in the past, this probably isn't the way you would have chosen to solve this, but we do have calculators that can do the work for us. If you do not have a calculator right now, make sure you pause the video and go get one. Okay, so here's my calculator. All right, so I'm going to type in, the way I read it is 6 divided by 3/5. So I have 6 divided by. Now when you put a fraction in the calculator, it has got to go in parentheses. So I'm going to do my parentheses and then 3 divided by 5. Is that right? 3 divided by 5? Yeah. Okay, so make sure yours looks like mine, and then I'm going to press enter, and there we go. There's my answer of 10. So t is equal to 10. So just make sure every fraction that goes in needs to go in parentheses. If you need to write it like that when you write it to help remember, then do that. Okay, so that's one way. Another way is probably what y'all did last year when you had to clear fractions, but that's to multiply instead. But remember, if you multiply, you have to multiply by the reciprocal. So let's say I want to go with that method, but I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/3. And again, remember that when you type fractions in, it has to go in parentheses. So this time I'm going to do 6 times, and then my fraction is going to be 5/3. Make sure it looks like mine with the parentheses. Press enter, and there we go. We still get 10. Okay, I'm going to show you what would happen if you did multiply by 5 from the very beginning, which you can totally do. I just think it's more work. So let me clear this, and I'll just show you this third way real quick. You don't have to write it down, but just so you see it. So I could multiply by 5 and knock that 5 out. That would give me 3t equals 30. Divide both sides by 3, and I get 10. So yes, that looks like those are easy numbers, so maybe that is the best route for you, but I would get to where I'm just clearing that fraction. Don't go from one way to the next, from problem to problem. Pick a way that you like and stick with it. Either be one of the people that divides the fraction off, or be one of the people that multiplies by the reciprocal. Don't do both. Okay, let's look at these two practice problems. If you want to pause it and practice these and then come back and listen to me, you can do that. Okay, so on this first one, I'm one of the people that likes to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by that fraction, 2/3. And then I'm going to my calculator. My calculator is going to do the work for me. So I've got 6 divided by, then I've got 2/3 in parentheses. And I press enter, and there's my answer of 9. So x equals 9. This next one, again, these kind of look funny because the variables are at the top and a lot of times they're out to the side. But this is still -3/5 times x. So again, I'm one of the people that likes to divide. So I'm going to divide by -3/5. So I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do 9 divided by -3/5. So make sure you type in negative if that's the way you read it. Okay, the negative is down by the decimal. Don't type in minus, because I don't read that as 9 divided by -3/5. It's -3/5. It does make a difference. And so my answer here is -15. Remember, you can check these, which you might want to do on the quiz and the test, but I'm not going to waste the time checking these while we're going through the notes. All right, now we're going to add a step to these. We're going to solve 2-step equations. So if you ever have anything being added or subtracted, we need to move that first. All right, so on number 1, I have a -4, so I need to move that first. And I know y'all did these all different ways. Some of you like to draw the big line down the middle. That's fine. Stick with what works for you, and I'm going to stick with what works for me. You just need to make sure you're showing every single step. So I have 9 plus 4 is 13. Now I can divide off that -2. Okay, and let's talk about fractions real quick. Okay, I normally want your answer to be in a fraction form, in an improper fraction. Don't give me any mixed fractions. So what I would do every single time is just go to your calculator, go ahead and type in 13 divided by -2. It's going to give you a decimal. Now even though that's a nice decimal, I really don't want your answer as a decimal. I really want it as an improper fraction. Okay, so the way you get it to a fraction, and a lot of you already know this, but you're going to hit math, which is right below that green alpha key, and then enter, and that'll get it to a fraction. So again, you just do your calculation, and then you hit math, enter, and it gets you -13/2. If you do have decimals, like if I still had another step to do, you're more than welcome to leave it as decimals as you're working through it. You're going to see one like that on your homework. But your final answer needs to be as an improper fraction. And the calculator will simplify it for you, so you don't even have to worry about that. Number 2, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. That gets me 3/2x equals 12. Now we're going back to, you get to choose your way to solve this. Do you want to divide off the fraction, or do you want to multiply by the reciprocal? And I like to divide off the fraction, because that way I didn't have to change the number at all. I'm just dividing. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to do 12 divided by 3/2. Enter, and we get a really nice number of 8. So x equals 8. Okay, we're just going to do one of these next two because they're exactly the same, just different numbers. All right, so let's do number 3. Okay, so a lot of us get really confused with fractions, but remember, to remove a fraction, we're always doing the opposite of what's happening. So in this case, if this is adding 5/6, to move it, even though it's a fraction, to move it, I need to subtract it. So I'm going to subtract 5/6 from both sides. There's one on the homework that's tricky like this, so just be careful. So I've got 2/3 x equals, and I'm going to type 10 minus 5/6 in my calculator. And a lot of us sometimes will type that backwards. Type it in the way that you read it. I read it as 10 minus 5/6. So I've got 10 minus, and in parentheses I'm going to do 5 over 6. I'm going to get that back to a fraction, so math, enter, enter, and that's 55 over 6. So I have 2/3 x equals 55 over 6. Now I still need to get rid of this fraction on the x. To do that, I'm going to divide it off, or if you're one of those people that likes to multiply by the reciprocal, then do that. Now since I already have 55 over 6 in my calculator, like it's still there, I can just hit divide, so I don't have to retype it in. I just hit divide, and then I'll type my other fraction in parentheses. So I'm dividing by 2/3. I don't want that decimal answer. I'm going to hit math, enter, enter. And there's my final answer, of 55 over 4. So there we go. All right, I'm not going to work number 4. Okay, this next slide is we're still just solving equations, but this is reiterating that we need to combine like terms first. So if you have like terms on the same side of the equal sign, we need to combine those first. So here it says solve 4a plus 3a equals 63. So I have 4a and 3a is 7a. Now I get rid of the 7, so I'm going to divide that off. And so I get a is equal to 9. Nothing too crazy about that one. Okay, this next one, it says solve 3t plus 5t minus 5 equals 11. So I need to find my like terms first. So I have a 3t and a 5t. So that makes 8t. And I still have minus 5 equals 11. Make sure you're showing every step. Okay, now I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So I have 8t equals 16. Divide both sides by 8. And t equals 2. Okay, number 2. Okay, what's important about this one is I have to get rid of these parentheses first. So this 3 needs to get distributed. I see a lot of you, like on your test, you did the little arrows, but you forgot to actually distribute to both. Make sure you do that. So I have 5a plus 3a plus 6 equals 22. Now before I start moving anything around, I need to find like terms. So I have a 5a and a 3a, so that's 8a plus 6 equals 22. Now I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. So I have 8a equals 16. And we get the same answer we got on the last one, because when we divide by 8, we get a equals 2. So there we go. These next two problems are exactly like these. They were just practice problems. If you want to work those, be my guest. I'm just not going to go over them. The only thing I do want to talk about is make sure, like everybody look at number 4 right now. Let's say this 2 wasn't there, but let's say it was just a negative out front. Okay, you have to think about that as a -1, so it also needs to get distributed. You're going to see that on your homework son, so just wanted to make sure you understood how to do that. Okay, so notice we have the same equation here at the top. This is just showing that if you have a problem that's set up like this, there's a couple different ways you can work it. And I'm going to show you both. I think there's going to be one way that y'all are just more used to, even though my other way is going to look better. Because a lot of you are going to look at this problem and the first thing you're going to think is, I need to distribute. Okay, and that's not wrong. Okay, but there is another way you could solve this. Okay, but let me show you the distributing way first. So I'm going to distribute 3/4. So that's 3/4 A minus, I can do that in my calculator, but I can do that in my head, because 3 times 5 is 15 over 4. That's just 15 over 4 equals 9. Now notice I have two fractions now, which is fine, because we do have calculators. But my other way, we're not going to have any fractions. So just hang with me for now. Okay, now I need to get A by itself. So I need to add 15 over 4 first. So I have 3/4 A equals, okay, I don't want to do 9 plus 15 over 4 in my head. So I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'll do 9 plus 15 over 4 needs to go in parentheses. And then math, enter. If you want, since 12.75 is a nice decimal, if you wanted to leave it as a decimal for now as you're solving through, that's fine. Or if you want to go ahead and put it in a fraction, you can do that too. So this equals 51 over 4. Now choose your way of getting rid of the fraction. I like to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3/4. Okay, I already have that 51 over 4 in there, so all I have to do now is hit divide, and then divide by 3/4, and press enter, and there's my very nice answer, 17. So A equals 17. Okay, so this looks like a lot of work, but it's not a lot of work, it's fractions, so it seems like it looks overall like it's a lot of work. Let me show you what else you can do here. If you think this is going to confuse you, then just don't do it. Okay, but I'm going to talk through it anyway. So, I have the same problem. Okay, now think about this is 3/4 times A minus 5. Okay, well how do we undo multiplication? Well, we divide. Or you multiply by the reciprocal. So, what you could do here is you could divide off the 3/4. And what that's going to do is it's going to cancel that 3/4 off of there. So I don't even have to distribute that because I'm dividing it off. So what I have now is A minus 5 equals, now I need to do 9 divided by 3/4 in my calculator. So 9 divided by 3/4. And I get 12. So now look how nice this is. I have equals 12. If I add 5 to both sides, I get 17. So, yes, you can choose either way. I'm afraid some of us may mess up the second way. I think a lot of us can do it, but if you know how to distribute, that may be a way that you want to stick with. Okay, and these last two things I'm not going to talk about, so let's just skip those. Okay, and let's go here. Now, these two problems here, I'm just going to work one of them. There will be one like this on the test, and it does get missed a lot. Okay, what we have right here is a proportion. When you have something over something equals something over something else, that is a proportion. So, the way we solve this is to cross multiply. And I just want to make sure that you do something very, very specific here. Right? It does not matter which cross you start with. Okay, I'm just going to start with this cross here. Please do not try to multiply this in your head. If you try to multiply in your head, what ends up happening is we distribute to the first number correctly, but we do the second number incorrectly. Okay, so write it out as 5 times 7 minus 2x. We'll come back and work that out here in a second. And then now I need to write out my other cross. So I have 3 times 5x plus 3. Okay, and then now we can work this out. Okay, so I'm going to distribute my 5. So I have 35 minus 10x equals 3 times 5x is 15x. 3 times 3 is 9. And now I just keep working through this. So I'm going to, you choose if you want to get your x's. I would always get your x's together first. If you're one of the people that like to keep your x's positive, then you would probably want to add 10x to both sides. I'm one of the people that likes to get my x on the left side, even if it means that it's negative. So it's up to you. But I would definitely get your variables together first. So I am going to subtract 15x. But if you wanted to add 10x, you could. So I have 35 minus 25x equals 9. Now I need to get my numbers together, so I'm going to subtract 35. So I have negative 25x equals, I believe that's negative 26. And I'm going to divide by negative 25. always type this in the calculator just to make sure it doesn't simplify it all. Negative 26 divided by negative 25. I'm going to do math, enter, enter. And it's 26 over 5, or 25. There we go. So just on those, I would advise you make sure that you write it all out, and then make sure you show all your steps. Okay, we're not going to work the next one. Okay, we're going to go ahead and skip this step also, and mainly because I think we've already done some like it. All right, but we do need to talk about this. So this says identify the number of solutions of an equation. So up until now, we have had one solution for every equation. So if I look back at the last one that we did, I got 26 over 25. The ones before that, I got 17. The one before that, I got 2 for both of those. I got 9 at the top here. So for all of these, I've gotten one solution. Okay, well, it might not always be that way. We may have a couple of different options. So let's see what that would look like. So let's just start to work this out. I'm going to distribute this 4. So I have 4x plus 5 equals 4x plus 20. Again, I would always get your variables together first. That's not a hard rule, but like, it's just going to help you out, especially on problems like this. So I'm going to subtract 4x. Now be really careful here, because a lot of people think 4x minus 4x is x. But if I just wrote an x, it's like there's a 1 in front. And you're telling me 4 minus 4 is 1, which is not true. 4 minus 4 is 0. Okay, well if I put 0x, well that doesn't make sense either, because anything times 0 is 0. So what happens? Those just cancel out. So I have 5 equals 20. Okay, notice what happened to my variables. They're completely gone. Okay, if your variables completely disappear, we need to now look at this equation and see if it is true or not. Does 5 equal 20? No, 5 does not equal 20. So in this case, this would be no solution. You need to actually write no solution. You can't say that x is 0, because x isn't 0. If x equaled 0, you would still see an x there, but we don't. We don't see any x's. So it's no solution. What no solution means is that there's no possible number I could plug in for x here to make this statement true. There's no x's. Okay, let's look at this next one. So I'm going to distribute this 3. So I have 6x minus 3 equals 6x minus 3. Right? I'm going to start working this out. Again, it's going to make more sense if you can just get your x's together first. So I'm going to subtract 6x on both sides. Those actually end up canceling out on both sides. So I have negative 3 equals negative 3. Notice our variables completely disappeared. So now I have to decide, is this true or not? Okay, well yes, negative 3 does equal negative 3. In this case, the way we say this is that it's infinitely, many solutions. Infinitely many solutions. I'm okay with you saying IMS. Infinitely many solutions. That means I could plug anything in for x and it would make it true. IMS. In the past, you might have heard a phrase, all real numbers. I would not count it wrong if you wrote all real numbers, but I really, because these are solutions, I would rather you say infinitely many solutions, or all solutions, or something along the lines of every solution, something like that. But I would be okay with you just writing IMS. Okay, so we're not gonna do these last 2 practice problems. So turn your notes into the sub and you will get a copy of your homework. We are gonna do all of the homework because I'm not having this class do this scavenger hunt. So make sure you do it all.